Hi, welcome to the Men's Forum. I'm your host, Gary Costanza. And tonight I have in the studio with me my co-host, John McGrath. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Gary.
And Roy Carlson.
Hi, Gary.
Guest for this evening. Tonight we're going to speak about one of our favorite subjects here at the Men's Forum, circumcision. It's very important. I think it's a crisis that we have to inform people about. It's very important, I believe. But before we get to tonight's subject, last show we didn't have time to play a song that I thought was pretty entertaining, actually. Let me just preface what we're going to play now. For Valentine's Day, in campuses across the nation, there has been the staging of the vagina monologues, and a lot of feminist groups have co-opted Valentine's Day and calling it V-Day in honor of, or in their quest to, quote unquote, end violence against girls and women. And of course, we know that there's violence against all people, male and female. Right. But you know, as we're familiar with, radical feminists are concerned with only one gender, and the heck with the rest of us. Well, we know we've done domestic violence shows, and we know it's 50-50. But so with this vagina monologues, here they're celebrating the vagina, and you know, they celebrate it, and they cry about it. You know, I guess, you know, all the trials and tribulations of their sex.
Well, I think they're really exploiting feminism is what they're doing. As a result, they should be focusing on the real issue of the violence, of the abuse, and the outcome of those. But what they're doing is they're taking a day like Valentine's Day, and they're exploiting it.
Yeah, exactly. A nice, harmless, you know, a pleasant holiday, one of the more pleasant ones, and they're trying to, well, propagandize it, you know, because that's what that is, propaganda. So there's an author, a men's rights author called named Jack Kammer, and he has a website at rulymob.com, and he had a contest for anyone who wanted to write lyrics to the tune of "If I Only Had a Brain" from the Wizard of Oz. You know, it's a lighthearted thing, but what the lyrics should be is "If I only had a V." In other words, if I only had a vagina. It's tongue in cheek and stuff, but I think what he wanted to show is that, you know, what, from the male point of view, what is the benefits of being a woman, and we know what the benefits are, you know, because we could see the problems of being a man. So the opposite would be the benefits of being a woman. You know, there's quite a few. So anyway, we're going to play that song. If I only had a V, and actually it came in third place, but it's pretty good. It's the only one that was recorded. Actually, you could download that from rulymob.com. So let's play that song.
Lately I've been contemplating the pros and cons of dating, what is and shouldn't be. In my mind, a thought's been brewing just how easy I'd be doing if I only had a V. As a man, I have my member, but I just can't remember when dinner dates were free. And now I've just accepted I might have a new perspective if I only had a V. I would not be called a gawker, could not be called a stalker, and that's just fine with me. I could be so flirtatious, everyone would be so gracious if I only had a V. Oh, I might like to shop. You know, I never have before. At the mall, I stroll through each and every store and never know what I'm shopping for. And when I'm not doing my best, I blame it on PMS. You'd have to pardon me. everyone would find it useless not to accept my excuses if I only had a V. Oh, I could fantasize how I've been so oppressed, how it's so unfair, my whole life's such a mess. And then I'd go out and buy a dress. I'd complain all men were brutal, how fighting them is futile, but really, don't you see? I'd ignore all the catcalls, no, I have them all by the balls if I only had a V. I'd say a penis, who needs it? I wouldn't have to beat it. I'd know that spring's eternal. I'm giving up the urinal, 'cause there'd be nothing finer than to talk about my vagina. If I only had a V. If I only had a V. If I only had a V. If I only had a V.
All right. So that was pretty entertaining, huh?
Yeah, I think
that's pretty good.
That's going to raise a few eyebrows.
Oh, well, what the heck, you know, right? It made a lot of points there, you know.
Right. Well, it's almost.
It makes some good points that we always make.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
and a little entertaining too. Shaking some people up. So let's get to the subject, John. What would you like to start? Circumcision. What's the deal with this?
You know, that was a pretty interesting topic, actually, and until last year when you made mention of it and brought it to my attention, I really didn't know that much about it.
No.
So I had to do a little research on it because I guess I didn't have enough knowledge of circumcision to begin with. And
me neither. I never thought of it really even as an issue until tonight's show.
it's kind of one of those things you kind of take for granted, I think. Nobody really gives it much thought, but in light of the fact that I did do some research on it to understand it a little bit, the origin of it, how the whole concept, the idea came about, it was pretty frightening to learn that we could have such a wrong idea about it.
Well, it dated back to like old Judaism, didn't it? Where it was a religious and a cleanliness kind of thing or something.
Yeah, well, it originated back Egyptian customs, and they thought that they made relation to it. Let me see if I have something on it here. Its origin was about snake worship, the Egyptian times.
Okay.
And well, the snakes, the Egyptians used to look at the snakes, and they thought that because the snake shed its skin, that it was the eternal life. So they looked at the human organ in similarity as the snake, that they'd circumcise it and they would gain eternal life.
Well, also, I think in those primitive days, I think it was also a way of marking their slaves. That was another, I think, some civilizations did that.
Yeah, but I think that came later on because the information I had stated that that since then the Arabs and the Jews had adopted it soon afterwards and adopted it into a religious belief. But over in our country, in English-speaking nations, it was introduced in the late 1800s, and over here in our country, between like 1920 and 1950, beginning of the century. And at that time, it was believed that masturbation was a cause of, actually it was the ground force for this consideration, right?
Yeah, to do this,
right? And
because of course, you know, the Puritans at the time frowned upon sex, and certainly masturbation. That was like an evil thing. So they thought that this was a way to stop boys from doing this.
Right, boys and girls, as a matter of fact. Girls also circumcised. But the
Well, that
English,
was in Africa. They never did that in civilized countries.
no, they did it. No, they did.
Yeah?
They did do it in
Yeah.
the English-speaking countries as well. But at that point, it originally started out that they thought it was a form of evil, right? And they stopped it. They would
Okay,
catch.
so I want to ask you yourself personally, since I did mention it to you, maybe you had thoughts before we talked about it, or you did your research, but what do you think about it? Before we get into everything else.
Well, I personally thought that it was done for religious reasons.
Okay.
That it was a belief that, you know, my grandfather
Well,
was
yes.
circumcised, my father was circumcised.
Now, wait a
I'm
second. Usually people of the Jewish faith get this done, but, you know, seems like everyone in this country, America, gets this done.
there's an
And I don't know
awful-
if it's religious reasons, because I think it's just a tradition, or it's just something that's done.
Well, a little bit of both, yeah.
Which
For
is-
hygiene now.
It's a little bit of both. Well,
Yeah.
for hygiene reasons, right. Well, the implication was that now you have to think back to the early 1900s when this was introduced here. They did it for hygiene reasons because of the bacteria buildup and whatnot, and the cleanliness reasons. But you have to realize too, these people lived. There was no running water, hot, you know, the amenities that we have today at their disposal. So, in a sense, yeah, they could get diseases and bacterial infections and whatnot as a result of that. But in today's society, we take baths every night. I mean, there's no real
does seem
no
like-
reason for
Exactly
this.
not, of course not. Now, Roy, I want to ask you, you're sort of new to this, like you were saying, you
Yeah.
never really gave it a thought.
No.
I don't know if you did any research, you probably just did some thinking about it. Well, what are your thoughts?
Well, like I said, honestly, I really didn't give it too much of a thought. It was just like a tradition that everybody went and did. Why do we stay on the right of the road when we drive? Well, because we always did.
Exactly.
And I never really gave it too much thought at all. And just went along with the flow and everything. My son was circumcised, and at the time when I never thought, you know, not to. I never considered it. I just thought, you know, yes.
That's what's
you know.
done, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you know.
society or these doctors seem to know. I mean,
Right.
they're smart
Was it a-
people. I mean, I guess that's probably what we should do.
It is kind of, you do wonder, you know, it's there for a reason, probably. It was a thing of nature.
Certainly.
And now, all of a sudden, we're like, no, we're going to get rid of that. And you do have to wonder why, as John said.
You definitely have
why,
to wonder
why
why.
maintaining.
This is a serious operation. As a matter of fact, it's the most frequently performed surgery.
Right.
Most frequently performed surgery.
Right, and here's the thing.
Ridiculous. And it doesn't cure any disease. It doesn't correct any deformities.
Right.
Okay? Go ahead,
Right,
John.
it almost seems like there's no reason for it whatsoever.
Well,
Now,
there is no reason for it.
But I have some facts here that are very interesting also. In the world, there are 23 medically advanced nations. Medically advanced, which means that we have medical research, technology, okay, and experts in fields of all of these fields, okay? The U.S. is the only nation that routinely circumcises. 63% of the male population in the United States is routinely circumcised with no proven medical indication whatsoever that it's a benefit at all. Okay? Let me see. Okay, naturally. Okay.
How many of those countries do this? Did you say just the United States?
Is the only one who routinely circumcises.
Okay.
Who routinely
There you go.
circumcises 63%.
Right. In other words, for no reason.
Right, for no reason, no medical backing
Medical
whatsoever.
reason. Exactly.
there's absolutely,
Because there are some cases where that may be needed, just like any other operation.
well, in
a
third
problem.
right, in third world
You
countries,
fix a problem.
like you take for argument's sake, there's currently today, as we speak, in parts of Africa, Ethiopia, there is female genital mutilation occurring on a daily basis right
Okay,
now.
and what it will-
There are circumcisions going on, but this is based on, you have to try to put in perspective that these people live in a world today like we did 200 years ago. They don't have the technology available to them out there.
Do you know why they're doing that to the females?
They're doing it out there for the same ignorant reasons that they think. First of all, they don't have running water, medicines, and the cleanliness tactics.
I've heard of it
there's
being
a high
done.
there's a high outbreak of STDs, AIDS, for argument's sake, sexually transmitted diseases.
Right.
That comes from filth. That comes from, and believe it or not, okay, this is the statistics that I'm reading on this, on just Africa alone and Ethiopia, they believe that this disease is contracted, now AIDS, from having sexual intercourse, either anally or with animals. So now these people live out in the wild. They're not in a civilized environment like we are here.
Right.
So it's almost understandable that they could have such a necessity for it, but still,
But
we see it as a barbaric act because it's really not necessary.
Well, Gary, you asked us what we feel. What do you feel about circumcision?
Well, I've said it before. I think it's an abuse. I think it's child abuse because, first of all, it's surgery being done to healthy tissue. Healthy tissue, and in most cases, done without any anesthesia. Okay? There's trauma. These boys are being traumatized. Terrible, terrible trauma. Studies have shown, I've had doctors on my show and studies have been done that show that traumatizes the child. In other words, because of that trauma, they are extra sensitive to later pain in life. Studies have been done to support this. Exactly.
That's interesting.
It's very true. For instance, this one study was that circumcised boys, when they later got vaccinations, had an extreme sensitivity to the pain of the vaccination, as opposed to the normal population. Child abuse, it's elective surgery. If we want this done, or if we think that we should do this to boys, let them elect to do it later on in life. Let them choose. We don't do this to anybody. We don't perform surgery on anybody, elective surgery, without their permission. Actually, I'm taking a women's studies class in college, and we're talking about the 5 sexes. It's a book written by a feminist, and there's not just female and male, but there are hermaphrodites who have genitals of male and female. And what routinely happens in this country, or maybe the world, when these 4% of the population supposedly is born this way, they perform surgery to correct this, to either make the person a male or female.
God.
Okay, so of course the point of all this is that that's a terrible surgery to perform on somebody who's not consenting. Let the person be who they are. Let them decide later if they want surgery, first of all, at all, or what sex they would like to be later on.
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly.
It's a toy course there, really.
Exactly. Believe it or not, I was not the one who mentioned circumcision in my class. You would have thought that I'd be the first one.
Right.
But actually, there was a man in the class who said, well, what about circumcision? Boys don't consent to that either. And of course, that's my point.
Right.
That's my point there. There's no consent there. It's child abuse, and it's unnecessary.
That's true. And again, the medical field cannot back it up with any significant proof
why do you
that
think,
it's necessary.
Then why do you feel it goes on like as in the same brain pattern that I just went and had my son, not even thinking about it? Do you feel the medical profession also just, well, this is what we do, and we're doing this?
Well, Roy, it's not just ignorance. It's not just like, well, the heck, we'll just do this. There's lots of profit in it. This is surgery that's being compensated to lots of doctors, lots of people. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I believe, I'm not so sure about this, but foreskins are used for medical research or for medical reasons. I'm not sure exactly what for, but they do use that for some reason.
I know they've used the umbilical cord that's rich in blood and all that.
All right.
I don't know.
But John has some information. He dug up some stuff as to, we all know that health care is, costs are astronomical, okay? To the point where some people, a lot of people, can't even afford it, okay? So HMOs and healthcare providers are looking to cut costs drastically no matter what, okay? And there you go. That would seem, I mentioned this, of course, that would be the first thing to go, elective surgery. That's elective surgery. Cut that. We're not paying for that surgery. That's like cosmetic.
Right, exactly.
It's cosmetic.
And they'll cut the cost, and they'll also make you
Exactly.
think about it more realistically.
Right.
If you're going to pay for that out of your own pocket,
your own
because it's
pocket.
a very expensive procedure.
Exactly. And guess what? It's a dangerous procedure.
It's very dangerous.
Boys die every year of this unnecessary procedure.
Right. Well, it has to
die.
be, it has to
Really?
be performed.
Die.
Wow.
Well,
Yep.
it really should be performed under anesthesia. Okay, you cannot administer anesthesia to an infant
Right.
to do this.
Right.
Okay, and
It's
the
dangerous.
And the trauma
Exactly.
alone is unbelievable. It's very painful. You know what they do? If you were to see films, and if you go to a website, I mean, you can look this up. I got sick. They actually, and they do this. I mean,
Yes.
you could ask anybody who's had it done, or anybody if you know people. Jewish people, it's done usually by a rabbi, and they come to the house, and they do it the same way they do it in the hospital. And what they do is they have to tie the child to the bed. They have to tie him down. The hands are tied out, and the legs are tied out, so the child can't fight and move. Okay, and this instrument is placed over the end of the penis, and they snip it.
It's very
They
shocking.
cut it, and it's very traumatic.
Well, on a previous show, I showed a film about that actually showed a circumcision, and it showed all that
Yeah,
stuff.
this
You can get this film at any library, and websites. There's lots of websites. There's lots of groups.
Yeah, they have
Thank
them on-
God,
they
there's
have it
lots
on
of groups
MP3s.
that are coming out against this horrible surgery.
So, John, I don't know what your situation is, whether you're circumcised or not, but do you wish you were one way or the other, or do you have it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm circumcised.
You are?
And I'm very thankful that I don't remember the experience, because it's very frightening to go back on the internet and look at this stuff and see what's going on. But in relation to the point you made about the medical field, how they're trying to, see, there are lobbyists out there right now who want to make the medical professions, doctors, responsible for giving us the information necessary to make this decision whether or not to do it. Okay, and like you said, it is a violation of human rights to make this decision for the child. But in retrospect, in the United States right now, there are 7 states that have eliminated totally Medicaid funding for this procedure. Okay, California.
Here.
Yes.
Very good.
California, Oregon, Arizona, Washington, Nevada, North Dakota, and Mississippi so far have eliminated any funding whatsoever to have this procedure done. And eventually, more states are going to realize that this is a medical unnecessity.
In your research, were you able to find out how much it does add to a pregnancy and a whole delivery of a child? Were you able to? I wonder what it would add.
Well, you mean as far as how much
Cost,
the
yeah,
cost of it
medical
goes?
cost. I wonder what it does add.
Gee, I'm not exactly
I'm not sure
what it
the
is.
exact. Yeah, I'm not sure the exact figure on that either. But it's like Gary said, it's
But
$1
this is
billion.
something that's
it's a $1 billion
not needed
industry.
at all.
Right.
It's totally unnecessary.
And
Right.
you know, whether
It's
or
like,
not.
right, it's like cutting, you know, you have 10 fingers. Why don't we just cut 2 or 3 of them off? You don't need all those fingers. It's the same, you know, it's the same principle. What do you need all those fingers for?
No, it's like elective surgery, like let's say breast implant. You know, something that I just want it. You know, I
Right.
just want it. Well, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with you. We're not paying for it. If you want that, you get it done yourself. But I've said this on other shows. How about this? Okay, we're so concerned about our children and our baby's health. Pregnant women now, they get vitamin injections. You know, the doctors tell them don't drink at all, take vitamins. You know, breastfeed. You know, even the birth now is. We don't want it to be traumatic. You know, they use birthing rooms, and they even give birth in water, you know, to make it nice and make the transition so beautifully and painless and relaxing and stuff. And then, hours later, they cut a piece of the poor child off, piece of his genitals. Extremely painful, unnecessary, traumatic. They say that interferes with the bonding between the child and the mother. I mean, mothers. You know, I've had a doctor who came on the show and said this, that his patients, his women patients, say that, you know, the bonding was great with the breastfeeding, you know, but after that surgery, all of a sudden he wouldn't breastfeed. He was traumatized. He was, you know, totally cut. The bonds were cut. So So this is a terrible abuse, mutilation. It's a mutilation. You're asking about being personal? Yes, I was circumcised. And look at yourself. If you look at yourself, you see the scar. Okay? When I was even young, I looked and I said, that looks funny. That looks like a scar. We're scarred. And you say you're glad you don't remember it. You don't know if you don't remember it.
Right. And you know, that's a good point.
It's a subconscious thing.
That's a good point that you mentioned that about the scarring, because 80% of all circumcisions are actually done incorrectly.
Really?
And that's a medical fact. Incorrectly. And that's why some of the children are dying as a result of the surgery being done improperly, having to go back. One child had a heart attack as a result of a reaction and an infection because of that surgery.
Yes,
And
a lot of complications.
Right.
Well, we're out of time, my friends. I just want to let our readers, our viewers know the website for the biggest anti-circumcision group. It's nocirc.org. Check out that website. I'd like to thank you, John, for being on the show.
Pleasure.
Roy,
Gary.
you too, my friend.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Anthony Perry, my director, Jimmy Orlandi, my graphics and sound man in there. Thanks a lot. Great work. And until next week, thanks and good night from the Men's Forum.